What is going on, investors? Hopefully, you guys had a great day out there. Time to talk about one of my most favorite stocks in the stock market, believe it or not, is actually Visa, ticker symbol V. So we'll talk about this one. Over the last year, stock's up 37%. We get a nice little $1.28 per share. It's only 0.56% on that yield, but we'll talk about how that can increase over time. You got just a light $492 billion market cap on Visa. I'll talk to you why this is one of my most favorite stocks here in a minute. When we go over the financials, this company just reported their earnings, their profits. We'll take a look at those. Now, I've had my finger on the pulse of Visa for a while. We've done several videos. The last one I published here on January 28th. What's the title of the video? Visa is a buy. I'm going to show you January 28th. Where is that on this stock chart? Oh, just right where it bottomed at the beginning of the year and at about $195 per share. And it's bolted on just a light $40 on the stock price over the last couple of months. So there is a reason why people are fans of this channel, because you can make money if I get things right. And look, when you go through all my videos, I don't really necessarily recommend a lot of stocks. I think those stock channels out there that are constantly recommending videos, they're doing that for views. They're doing that to make money. I will only get on this channel and recommend stocks that I think are going to do this, that literally were on a downtrend and have bottomed and are about to reverse. So is Visa a buy now that we're all the way up here at $232? Guess we'll have to talk about that here in a second. Let's go through the Q2 results. Visa stock rises as fiscal Q2 returns turn positive growth at card present transactions. So you got two different transactions that Visa processes. You got card presents when you're at the grocery store, when you're at wherever you have to actually physically swipe the card, maybe using Apple Pay or something like that. And then obviously online where the card is not present. Now, what I see in the comments of my video with Visa, there's a lot of misconceptions about this company. I'll get comments like, oh, I'd rather PayPal is taking their business or Square is taking their business. That is not at all true. First of all, PayPal has a credit card of their own that MasterCard processes the payments. I actually see these businesses as complementary. Visa is the network that allows companies like Square and PayPal to process transactions. Okay, sometimes when you process transactions through a PayPal with a credit card, guess what? If you use your Visa card, Visa makes money. Also, you have withdrawals off that site and sometimes deposits using a debit card. Visa is often the logo on your debit card as well. They're complementary business, not necessarily competing business. So Visa stock's rising after hours. We're seeing it's tick up a little bit, about 1.3%, about $3 per share. Again, it's been on this monster rise since we recommended it back in January. This thing's just been ripping higher, okay? It made a higher high here, higher high, higher here. We'll see what happens with this one when we get over to the stock chart. Now, here's some notable items. So during the last several months, Visa, 6 months in particular, Visa has repurchased 17 million shares of Class A stocks for an average of $205 per share, using about $3.5 billion. So considering the stock is at $232 right now, the fact that they've bought, a sizable amount of shares for $205, actually a pretty good use of that money. Now, they announced a dividend of 32 cents per share. When we get over to the finances, we'll see that one of the reasons why Visa is one of my favorite, when I'm talking about one of my favorite stocks, if you follow the channel, you know I'm a buy and hold investor, okay? From a tax perspective, from a lot of perspectives, just a performance perspective, pretty much across the board, buy and hold is the best way to go. And on top of that, buy and hold dividend increasing companies that can increase their dividend over a long period of time, that is a strong strategy as well, and Visa's near the top of the list. Now, what I wanted to show you here is Visa's actually kind of a sneaky recovery play, okay? So we've got payments volumes, we got nominal, and we got constant. I think this is in terms of currency. We'll just focus on constant currency because have you ever seen currency not be constant? It's constantly moving around. We got payments up 11%. Cross-border volume, including intra-Europe, minus 21%. So the reason why this is a recovery play is because when you go on a trip to Europe, you go to Italy, you go to wherever, the United Arab Emirates, wherever it might be, you're going to take your Visa card with you. And they charge you mucho bucks when you make those transactions in these other companies. One of Visa's bread and butter business is actually that international travel, which we know has just basically been put on halt over the last year. And so that might be one of the reasons why we've seen just mega performance in this stock over the last few months, is simply because smart investors realize that this international travel is going to come back, and these payment processings are going to come back, and probably come back in a big way. Cross-border volume total down 11%. Processed transaction, though, this is helped by e-commerce and card-present transactions, up 8%. So despite the drop in the cross-border, we're seeing processed transactions actually go up at Visa. In my opinion, that is an extraordinarily bullish sign, especially if you can get Europe travel, get Americans traveling to Europe and Italy and Asia and those types of things, and the other way around. Now, moving on, they start things off at Visa with the balance sheet. Spoiler alert, it's pretty nice. So we got back in September. Looks like we've got maybe, I guess it's about a 9-month view or a 6-month view, something like that. We've got March 31st, the most important thing. This is our most recent quarter here. We've got cash and cash equivalents sitting at about $16.5 billion. We talked about how they spent about $3 billion over the last 6 months on share purchases. Doesn't look like it's really come off the top of the balance sheet, so that's kind of nice. Now, total current assets sitting at about $27 billion. It's about where we were in the previous period. Same thing for total assets sitting at about $80 billion. Total liabilities sitting at 42. It actually ticked down a little bit. Long-term debt ticked down just slightly. So they've paid off a little bit of debt, and they've maintained the cash on the balance sheet. All things being considered, that balance sheet is actually pretty nice. Now, let's take a look at the statement of operations. This is our revenue. This is our profit. Over at Visa, we've got net revenues here. We've got our 3 months ended here, 20 over 21. And then we've got our 6 months ended here, 20 over 21 as well. Broadly, what we're seeing is basically flat to down revenues on that top line. This is also why I was excited about Visa back here in January, is because we kind of stalled out a little bit. But I think that as we move into the summertime and into next year as well, again, I have a long-term view on this one, probably a 10, 15, maybe 20-year view on this one. Look, these net revenues will probably eventually start appreciating at some time, but basically flat over the last year. Same story for the 9 months as well. We're just off fractionally. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars, almost kind of a rounding error when you're taking a look at these things. Now, when we take a look at operating expenses, when we're seeing revenues basically stay flat to go down, you'd like to see your expenses stay similar. For the 6-month period, we're seeing that. For the last 3 months, not quite. We've ticked up a little bit, but it's only about 10% of what we've seen down here. So that's going to hurt our operating income. We went down from about 3.9 down to about, we'll call that 3.6. For the 6 months, we went from 7.9 down to 7.4. How is it hurting our profitability? We come down here to net income and we see almost flat, okay, for the last month. So even though we've had increasing expenses, some declines in revenue, our net income is still coming in pretty solid. And we're also seeing it for the 6 months as well, basically flat. Okay. And you might ask, well, why is a stock that is basically flat on revenues, flat on operating income, flat on net income, one of my most favorite stocks? I'll tell you what, I've sure liked it a lot more in January when it was down at these levels, but here's why I really like this stock. Here's our basic earnings per share. We've got on this common A stock, $1. We earn $1.38 on that thing. Guess what we pay in dividends? $1.28 for the whole year. So you betcha. This is a company with mucho room to increase that dividend, and they will continue to increase it. So if you can buy and hold this one and you can have appreciation in that dividend combined with stock buybacks and share price appreciation, tell you what, guys, that is a winning combination when it comes to building out a portfolio. Now, statement of cash flows. This might give us a better idea of what's going on here. So we've got our 6 months ended here. We pull down that net income from the 6-month period. It's just down a little bit, about $200 million over the last 6 months. We get to add back things, gets to take things away. That gives us net cash provided by our operating activities went from $5.3 billion up actually to $6.8 billion. Okay, it looks like they gave out a little bit less client incentives, as you'd imagine. Those cross-border transactions, things like that, might not have to incentivize things quite as much as they normally do. That has allowed them to retain a little bit more cash from their operating activities. Now, what did they do with this $6.8 billion? Because we saw they didn't really increase the cash on the balance sheet. Okay, so what happened here? So net cash provided by investing activities, it looks like they sold some maturities here. They basically churned out $1.5 billion there. So you got $6.8 billion running the business. You got another we'll call that 1.5 from kind of, buying and selling kind of marketable securities and things like that. Now you're up to $7-8 billion. Well, here it is right here. The repurchase of Class A stock came in at $3.5 billion. You got repayments of debt. This probably helped their net income a little bit by reducing the amount of interest that they have to pay. And they also had dividends pays here coming at $1.4 billion. Also, the other thing you want to keep in mind, as you repurchase this stock, you don't have to pay the dividend on those shares because you're buying those shares and retiring them. Now you don't have to pay the dividend. So a buyback kind of does twofold when you're a dividend paying company. Okay, you're buying the shares and kind of retiring them, and you're also retiring the dividend that you have to pay on those shares. So all things being considered, the net cash that we used in our financing activities was a negative $8 million. We talked about how they made, that's 7, 8, and some change here. So the change in cash was minimal, about $387 million. So that was Visa from a fundamental perspective. From a chart perspective, this thing has just been on rally mode since we recommended it back here in January. Do I recommend this stock right now at this elevated range? Tell you what, I'd like to see a pullback in this one. Be honest with you again, this is from my perspective. I already have shares of Visa. I bought shares when I recommended it. I've bought shares all along this sideways consolidation between 190 up to 200. I bought Visa actually several times during this sideways consolidation. Okay, do I like it right here? Yeah, probably 215. Is that too deep of a pullback? Potentially. You also have a spot here where the stock topped out here and it was a resistance point here. It was also where this big gigantic red candle kind of began. That's at 220. So you get a pullback to 220. I'd be maybe a buyer there, but at 215, probably even more excited about it there. Will you get your opportunity with that? Take a look at Visa. It goes on rallies and it has pretty large pullbacks. It goes on a rally, has a big pullback, has a rally, pullback, rally. Guess what? It's probably going to happen pretty soon with Visa. Probably going to have a pullback in this one. So if you get a pullback in this one, my opinion, it does create a buying opportunity. And this is for a buy and hold investment. Because in my opinion, in order to really maximize your Visa is because you want this dividend rate to increase. You also like the competitive nature of this business. The fact that it has way less competition than what people realize. Because when I read the comments, like I said, people talk about PayPal and Bitcoin and things like that. I actually see all of that actually being complementary to Visa's network. Visa is a network stock. Think about Visa as like the internet, okay? Facebook doesn't compete with the internet. Neither does Amazon. Neither does Netflix, okay? Visa is the backbone of payments, and it doesn't necessarily matter if you're using Bitcoin, if you're using PayPal, if you're using Square, if you're using Venmo. Now, does Visa benefit all the time when that money flows? No, it doesn't necessarily does, but in the long run, Visa benefits when you have payments flowing, when you have money moving. Okay. And so that is why I like Visa in the long run. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We'll be back with lots more, not only this week, but also at the end of the week, probably on the weekend, I will do a consolidated video where I will talk about a lot of the stocks that we missed during the week. We'll do a big consolidated video of earnings, Starbucks, UPS, Goldman Sachs. There's a number of stocks that I was not able to get to during the day when the earnings are report, so we'll do it later in the week. So hopefully, guys, have a great day out there. We'll be back again soon with more videos. Good luck with your investments.